All right, welcome to the second part of Tactical Tuesday for the week of January the 11th, I think. So, this part of the session is going to cover the strategy and some of the philosophy that I use in either SK or ASL games. It really doesn't matter. The strategy is pretty much the same, with, of course, minor adjustments for rules and other things you have to take into account and consideration. But for the most part, these strategies are universal. And so use what you have at your fingertips. Know what your enemy can do. Know what the victory conditions are primarily. And adjust what you can do. You know, if the Americans are playing with the same victory conditions against the same German opponent versus the British, they both of those nationalities have to approach the scenario differently. So that's kind of what we're talking about in this particular strategy session. If it gets lost on you, that's on me, my problem. I apologize for that. But go back, rewind it again, double speed, half speed, whatever, and try to see where some of the nuances might not be quite so obvious. But anyway, here's the strategy and philosophy section of ASL. It'll be shorter, so you guys don't have to watch a 2-hour episode. But we're going to try something differently that way. If we have a whole bunch of questions, as the other one had, then we're just going to chop it up. Simple as that. All right? Well, thanks a lot, and we'll see you at the end. Use them as particular examples. So go ahead and sync with me right now. And I don't have any setups for here, but we know, for those that are familiar with snipers and those I think, well, John's played some AS, I think a little bit of ASL. So you've got your general setups here, and I could use the, what is it? And again, you guys are playing well. It's just that we just really, really, really need to essentially we go to the next level. We've got what we need at the first level, right? Questions like, can my crew fire after it fires the gun? That's next level thinking, because you fired your first shot, you shot your wad, lost rate of fire. Okay, my gun's done. The only thing I can do is intensive fire. Not necessarily true. The crew does have capabilities, and so that, in my opinion, is utilizing your forces to your best advantage. So when those questions are coming in, those are the next step solid questions that mean that you guys are looking at the next level. You're looking at the next level, but deeper into the game. And so that's what we want. That's what we're here for. We're here to master the core concepts, and then get introduced to the levels after that, and become proficient at the next level. Because as we become proficient at each step and level below us, then we become better players overall in anticipating stuff. You know, we all have bad dice rolls. How do we control this? I always forget this one. Increase control. What the hell's that? Okay. Control. Okay. Craig, tell me, what is the biggest hurdle the Finnish have to overcome in this scenario since you've played it?
Uh, well, running down and not getting killed before you get off the board.
Okay. This game is 7 turns long. I think the balance takes it to 8, and I think if you play it initially, if you guys are new players, if you've never played this before, or if, even if you've seen it played before, if you've never played the game before, I would give the balance to the Finnish just to see where he can go at that point. So we know the Finnish have to get off the board. That is the objective of the game. Whoever gets the most victory points off the edge of the left-hand side wins the game. So the Russians can move guys off the board, and the Finnish can move guys off the board. Whoever has the highest count wins. Simple as that. And Craig, what were the units that got off the board at the end of your game? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
You were the Finns, right?
No, I was the Russians.
The Russians. Okay, what were the Finns? Who did the Finns get off? Do you recall that?
don't remember. Probably
Like a squad and a leader or
uh,
something like that, right?
648 and a leader. Yeah.
Right. So, leader, what do you see on the screen right now? So, we need to move, right? So, in terms of again, we're going to the next step here. We're not just okay. We know how to move guys off the board. This, that, and the other. We've got so many turns to get there, and because this came up in a game that I played just last week, and it's like, oh, okay, this needs to happen. So I need to be able to do this. So in this scenario, what do you need to be able to do as the finish? Right? You need to move. What's going to facilitate moving?
The leader.
Your leaders. You only have 3 of them. Okay. One of the Finnish leaders got off in that particular game. I'm not sure what happened. I think one of the other ones got wounded or something like that. Do the Finnish need the leaders to rally?
No.
No. So you need to know your capabilities, your nationality capabilities, and realize that the square on the backside of the Finnish counter means he can self-rally. So we don't necessarily need him for rallying. It helps a little bit, but they're not really, that's not really their purpose in this particular scenario. You're going to have a lot of units that might be broken, and you don't necessarily need to run a leader over to get to them before they come up and going. So your units will come back a bit faster than everybody else's units. So the key component in this, into maximizing your victory points to get off the board, is to use your leaders as transporters, because they're not directing anything, right? I mean, 0 -1. That's you've got 6 firepower. You're doing 12 firepower +1 +2. If you cower 1 column, you go down to the 8. If you roll average, it's really not going to make a difference. And the support weapons you might have. So moving
Right.
your
The Finnish leaders, you handle them totally different because you don't. I mean, a lot of leaders you respect them and you guard them, but these guys you just want to run forward with them.
right, and so obviously we don't want to take our leaders and run them. These aren't the guys moving first. You know, first of all, number one, are you getting all your Finnish units off the board? The answer is no. It's not going to happen. Just not going to happen. So that's where you have role involvement in play, where you've got like your strike force of 648s, essentially going to be like your offensive line, and you're going to be blasting these guys through the line. Clone a couple guys. Right, these guys going to be assault moving up as fast as they can. Break it a couple units. These guys might break and route over here, might break right over here, and they're essentially trying to push a gap for the leaders to be able to get through, because we don't. I really hate the ghosting. So the leaders will be taking their units. Oh my god, I've never seen that before. Okay, whatever. Okay, whatever, Basil. So the leaders are going to be trying to punch a hole through the line because they're fast. Most of this game, you're not getting 10 points off as the Finns. If you are, the game was already over probably 3 turns before then. So you're getting a couple units off, and the faster you can get these units. First of all, these units are great for what? For movement. So if these units are getting broken down here, what can you be using these units for? Getting behind them, right? So you're going to be moving forward anyway. So move forward and get behind them. So when these units advance up and then they have to route next turn, they pretty much can't route back this way, blocking your movement. They have to route down and away, or right here, something like that. So they move them out of the way because he knows he doesn't want to route here. Even if he does, he's got to then route back this direction. But he might actually die if he does that. So, because if he's right here, he sees this guy 2 hexes away. So he goes 2, 4, and then he can't go back here because that would be reducing the range to this guy. So he would die. So he knows he's got to route here or route here. These units are going to be pushing this way. This 458 might be here. We could kind of ignore him. Why can we ignore some of these units? Do we have to handle all the Russians that we come across? No. We have 8 morale. We could take a couple shots. If he breaks, guess what? We route forward. And then self-rally in 2 rally phases at most. At most. And then this guy might go here. You might save him here to prevent him from DMing him again. Whatever plan you have. But the key point is We need our leaders alive. So, we need our leaders alive. What's going to take out our leaders in this game? What's the number one thing we might have to worry about in this particular game of losing our leaders?
I can volunteer an answer.
Go ahead.
Snipers.
Snipers. What's the Russian sniper in this scenario?
Oh,
300.
It's yeah, exactly. You roll the dice and you get a sniper check every single turn. So 7. So my question to you is if your plan involves mobility and you have a high sniper number for the enemy, what don't you want to be doing all that often? Or there's a couple things we can do. We can deal with a sniper.
Taking low percentage shots.
Right. You're not taking any. And I was looking about this in the scenario that I had. I had weaker units. I had 4 firepower units. You don't take anything that's not going to give you a decent effect. You need something when you roll a 7. He needs to be taking a morale check, which means your firepower columns need to be pretty oomph. Well, for the Finnish, that's not too difficult to do, right? A 12 firepower, the advanced phase. If you roll a 7, that's a morale check, right? If this is a +2 building, it stays in that wooden building, so that will be a 7 will yield a morale check. It will also possibly generate a sniper. As long as we're getting something, in my philosophy as a player, if I'm getting something for the sniper to possibly generate, then it would behoove me to do so, especially because he can't route backwards because this guy can interdict him down here. So the only thing these guys can do is route up. And I think they're 4-4-7s in this game, to be honest with you. So that's another benefit. So the fire attacks, just like Craig said, you don't want to take the low odds. Just don't bother. And what's another reason why we don't need to take the low firepower shots? Let's say both, because these guys are, I know these guys are 4-4-7s. Okay. Let's say this guy was broken here, and this guy's going to come up and try and kick our ass. Let's say he advances. Assault moves here, right? Right. And these guys, let's say they're over here. And they're defending over there. Right. When he moves up here, is this got an actual threat to our unit in front of it? Right. Well, in this case, the 10-1's there. So this is going to be a 12+2 shot that can yield a result. Do we need it? That's up to you. But even if, let's say, he were a 4-5-8 or something, or 5-4-8, we don't necessarily need to take all the shots because he's going to stay here. Is he going to jump in close combat? He might. If that's his intent, then you blast him. If his intent is to get here to block the road for firing, that might be a situation where you might want to fire at him, right? But you only want a defensive fire because these units just keep moving, right? He can move here because the 4-4-7 can't see him. And then this unit can go up here. Even if we would just want to avoid the shot, this unit can then go. He could even go here. Why is this a good decent? Instead of firing on this guy, can we simply go there instead? Sure, that's an 8+1 shot. This unit most likely will be able to afford a high chance of surviving that shot. So we go 2, 3, and then we advance. So the Finnish can make it here. It's not a huge load. We move through 2 or 3 hexes. And then we have a decent chance of these guys getting past. Let's say he goes here to cover more open ground road. Do we care about that? Not necessarily. This guy, the guy on the bottom continues to move. Because it's a movement scenario, we need to get the hell off. We have to focus on moving. If these guys continue to move, and remember, our leaders are going to outrun this guy every single day of the week. Now, 99.9% of the game, there's always a medium machine gun in this building. So I'm going to ignore that for now. Knowing that there's a medium machine gun you have to deal with, you could probably just charge these guys right in the middle. So he's going to go 3 here, then 4, and then advance. So that's where we are at the end of the next turn after that. As you see, this guy's trailing behind. Could we have fired at him to destroy this guy? Absolutely. But then these guys, at least a couple of them might be here. Because of that delay. And then our medium machine gun comes up because we're looking and we know what his OB is. And these guys get popped. The 10-3 gets broken, right? You guys will break. They're not Supermen. And then guess what happens? He's going to be stuck routing into some shitty location. And then he's going to continue to fire at him if you don't give him any more targets. This guy might come back here and harass him, and then he'd have to go over here. Essentially, he'll be out of it. And so with these guys back here, the 8-0 and the 6-4-8 that prepped fire on this guy, which may or may not have broke him. Let's say it did break him. Best chance scenario. We're still a turn behind. So this guy popped him, and now these guys have to run the gauntlet again. Whereas if we have all three targets going, he's got to pick and choose. I don't care about rate of fire on a medium machine gun. I really don't. He's going to get it. If he's going to get it, he's going to get it. But we do have 8 morale. And so if this were the situation, you know, let's say he gets rate of fire twice. He breaks one stack and the other stack's unaffected. You know, best case scenario for him. That we do.
Just breaking it down to my simple thought pattern. When I'm the Finns, I know I have to go 3 or 4 hexes to the left every turn.
Right.
Every turn.
So if we give him more targets to fire at, the more opportunity for us to advance is good. So we go, 2, 4, and then depending on where this guy is, we could just stay right there, 2, 4, and then advance because I don't want to take the -2 in the open. This guy down here, 1, 2, 3, advance. A 4 even shot is not going to do anything to defend. So you don't have to move in the open. Knowing that you don't have to move in the open, move your 2 hexes of protection and then advance in the open. Because if he breaks you, where are you going? 2, 4. He can't even see you now, and you'll rally in 2 rally phases, minimum. Same thing with this guy. If he breaks here, 2, 4, 6. He may be out of line of sight at that point. Don't know. And then essentially at that point, if he doesn't have anybody behind you, he honestly can't afford to fire upon you. Because at least one of these guys will rally in 2 rally phases from now. One may rally the next rally phase if he needs rolls of 4. I mean, a 4 is not horrible. We've seen it all the time. And so, unless he has the units to keep you DM'd, to be honest with you, firing at you in the open, if you want to do that, take this shot here. Because this guy can only go 2 hexes forward. Take this -2 shot here. He shoots at you because you're going to give it to him, right? Give it to him later because maybe he first fires on one of these guys. If he first fires on this guy, then these guys roam free. And that's another thing. Your order of movement's really key, especially in a movement scenario. Move these guys, maybe bait a shot. Maybe these guys bait this guy. We're going 1, 2, 3. Knowing that you think he's going to be there, give him a point blank shot. Make him take that shot. And if he doesn't take that shot, late CX, then jump over the hedge. Now you have protection. And then advance here. But make him take that shot. If he gets first fired, then these guys just simply run down the road. So the timing of your movement is critical. Don't necessarily throw one of your valuable units first, because this guy's going to have a higher mobility than this. So make sure you're giving your opponent the worst chance of damaging your units. He will damage some of your units. Fine, give him one. Damage this guy. Break him. I don't care. Why? Because, Jesus. Why? Because this guy's the guy that I want to get off, not him. This guy has to break for 4 points to move off. This is 4 points. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, advance. He's over here if you do this. Don't be afraid to throw this unit away. Is he thrown away? No, he can still route. 2, 4. And this unit could either stay there. The leader could either stay there, or this unit could advance here. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. But in your rally phase, this guy's rolling an 8. Russian turn comes. If he doesn't fire at him, he might fire. I mean, it's a 4+3. It's not going to break the unit. It's just going to DM him. What's that going to do? If he DMs this unit in his turn, what's going to happen to that unit? Russian rally phase comes. I roll 7. Doesn't rally. Medium machine guns. Let me put the medium machine gun there. He's got a unit with a machine gun up here. Let's fire 8. Let's fire 8+3. Even better. We're going to fire 8+3 over here. First of all, his breakdown's low. Why? Because one of the scenario special rules says there's ammo shortage, which means the breakdown 10. Is he going to waste the breakdown 10 on this unit to DM him so he can't rally, or fire on this unit? He's probably going to fire on this unit. I would fire on that unit, most likely, if no other targets present itself. And then guess what? You roll an 8 next turn. See rally. Let me roll a 9. There you go. 3 pops up. Okay. So, and if he did fire at this unit, let's say this unit were behind him, and this is the only unit he had to fire at. He DMs this unit. What's going to happen to him? You're going to route forward. You're taking the interdiction. We don't care about the interdiction. We failed the interdiction. So what? Why do we care? We don't care. That's another point. That's another movement. He's giving us a movement phase. That's what we don't have. We have a limited number of movement phases. And if he's giving us one, I might as well give him a half squad in return so I get one more point off the board. So I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and be down there, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and be right there. The choice is yours. Whichever direction you want to route is up to you. But guess what? We just went from here to here. That's another full movement phase. And that was his prep fire. Our rally phase, could we rally that unit? Maybe not. And you say, well, Stu, it's like if he rallied here, then he'd run over here. That's right. But guess what? The interdiction is a lower percentage shot in terms of damaging you than the 8-2. The 8-2 could outright kill a squad. The interdiction is only going to casually reduce it. And you're 8 morale anyway. So it doesn't matter at that point. So the point is knowing what you're looking up against. We are up against this. This is our biggest enemy. So if we're taking a lot of pot shots, a lot of 6+3s, 8+3s that need 5s for a result, use your morale. Your morale wins this game, not your firepower at times, but when it's big and rips through units. And once you break through one particular area, you could, again, if you want to kill units, try to get close and jump them in close combat. We have the advantage of close combat. Unfortunately, we can't move if we're stuck in close combat. But again, what does close combat do to this unit? We definitely don't want to throw leaders in close combat. Why? In this game.
All right.
The leaders are going to be moving units. We don't care about that's 2 more movement factors per turn that we're losing when he gets stuck in close combat. And he will get stuck in close combat. You don't want that at all. No leaders will enter close combat in this game. I don't care what odds you're looking at. You're only looking up to lock up this unit. Once this unit gets locked up, everyone runs by him. And just say, see ya. Everyone just runs by that guy, and we don't give a shit. We're freezing that unit. That unit essentially is out of the game. When he comes back in the game, he comes this way. Do we care? No, we're defensive firing with 16 firepower +1. This unit will break, and then he will definitely be out of the game. Because he's not going to rally anytime soon. He's going to rally 1 or 2 turns, and by that time, these guys are at least, in 1 or 2 turns, these guys are at least here. And there's no way this guy's going to catch up to him. And you guys, for those who ever play this game, you know those guys that are completely out of the game. And that's what you're doing by jumping in close combat. You're simply just taking guys out of the game. You want to avoid firing on that unit. If you want to fire and take him out of the game, just jump into close combat. Because not all your guys are getting off anyway. And if that frees this guy up from, prep firing or subsequent first firing and first firing and subsequent first firing to drop residual in 2 hexes, that's a bigger pain in the ass than him firing on you. Because now, 1-2, 2-2, those are free shots. It's like he has more units. So you want to avoid the more units thing. Yes, you're going to have a couple units frozen back here and so on and so forth. Yeah, you're going to fire on a couple guys and break them. But the more you just simply move, the better off you'll be. And I really hate that Vasil's kind of screwed up like this. So the 7 sniper is the thing that's going to stop, because if he pops one of these leaders, you just lost mobility. You're not worried about rallying capability. You lost mobility. And it's the same thing I had in my game, where I figured out that he had units in front of me, and we know that 7 sniper is high sniper, and we know that it likes to kill leaders. So how do we counter that? 1, we have high morale. So that means we can move more often than not and put ourselves in slightly worse positions than a 7 morale unit. So moving is not a detriment to our 8 morale units, especially in this game, because that's what we have to do anyway. Let's say we had to get to this position, then that's another thing. So movement is more important than firing, even though we have 6 firepower. And because of that, we won't be firing as often, right? You're not going to be prep firing. You may not even advance fire, because if you move, you might move out of the line of sight of these guys, right? And guess what? You'll be triggering his sniper less often. And once your leaders reach a point, once they reach, let's say the sniper were placed back here, and you don't fire a lot to generate sniper checks, let's say a sniper check and it popped over here, and then your leaders in 1 or 2 turns, because you did limited fire, everyone's down here now. I'm so glad that, Jesus. That's so fun. All your leaders are down here with your men. Now what do? Again, next level thinking. You have this guy. This guy is helping you. What else do you do? Nope. You might have a another unit. Let's say put him right here. Let's see, house squad. Maybe you have a house squad. You put a couple units in between. So if he does get activated, let's say he just goes this way, he's coming here. Right? So you have this as a guard for a sniper. Any sniper that goes this direction will always attack this guy. But if all these guys are forward, if all these guys are forward of your leaders and your sniper's behind, your sniper gets activated and moves over here, guess what? He's coming to this guy. So you need that buffer because you're going to be lagging some units behind anyway. Run your leaders forward fast to get past the big thing that's going to take out your guys. And once you can do that, then you can conduct fire attacks because now your leaders are protected from the sniper. Okay. He could reposition the sniper if he gets a good roll. And at that point, you reset. If your rolls are 1 or 2, you can reposition your sniper. And that's what he should be doing in this game. He should be putting it ahead of your units. And that way, when he activates, he's going to be popping him. He's going to be popping him. He's up in front again. Whereas if the sniper's behind the units, he's only going to be tagging these guys. He has to reposition to deal with this. Now, the Finns can't fire as often because the sniper question comes back into play. So he has to deal with the sniper, means he can't fire as much. It's going to be a little trickier because, or at this point, put your guys in stone buildings and your other units that are close to him in open ground. So if the sniper lands kind of close and equidistant, like if he lands here, then he has to go to an open ground unit, the least terrain. So there's 2 hexes, this is 2 hexes, he has to choose this target. And then that's how we protect our leaders from snipers, is have somebody in the open ground. And how can we do that? We have 8 morale units. We can leave them in open ground. We don't care. We don't really care at that point. They're still, by the virtue of them having 8 morale, they'll be better defended anyway. And then we can move more units off this way. So that's what we're looking for in this scenario, is obviously the victory conditions are move guys off the board, and we know how to do that. But what stops us is lack of mobility and snipers. That's the biggest thing. We don't have to really kill any Russians in this one. All we have to do is tie them up. Break a couple here and there to create a crack and flood units through there. Because once we get to this position, now that we'll have this many guys, we'll exit 1 or 2 guys off, and then everybody else, if necessary, if the Russians have a large contingent of forces, guess what? We sit them up to defend. And now if the Russians want to try and get some of their guys off, now they have to run through our guys. And that's not going to happen because we have more firepower. 6 minus 2, that's just not going to be feasible. So once you get the victory point ahead, then everyone else turns a block. So that's kind of what you're looking up in that situation there. Other situations that come up that you have to think of at the next level, and in this case would be where I was watching another scenario, a replay, and it looked like a desperate situation. This is where you have to analyze the scenario and see where the scenario is going to be further down the line. Now, it was a scenario where one side gets a large amount of victory points on a per turn basis based upon how many buildings he occupies. So it looks daunting to overcome those odds, but that side had so many forces that there comes a point in that scenario, and many scenarios use this technique, is one side accumulates a lot of points early, and then later on they won't actually even have any points to deal with. And so their accumulation of points early in the game is what can win them the game. But as you kind of predict how many points they'll be getting, let's say he'll have all the victory points in the first 3 turns of the game. So let's say he gets 10 points a turn. So there's 10, 10, 10. And on turn 4, let's say you wrest 3 of those or half of those locations from him. So he'll only get 5, but you'll get 5. So you've essentially nullified any more points that he's getting if you take half of those locations in the middle of the game. The game's like 8 turns long. So in the middle of the game, you have to have half of those locations. And then as the game progresses, you get victory points to those buildings as well, or those victory objectives, or whatever the case may be. And as you obtain more and more buildings, he's not gaining so many more points. And of course, you're inflicting casualties and things like that. You want to maximize your casualty infliction by cutting route paths and stuff like that. Mark and I are familiar with this, where in a lot of our games, it's casualty based. And so you want to maximize your casualties. So focusing on maximizing casualties while you're taking those victory objectives really flips the coin the opposite direction, because by the end of the game, let's say turn 7, you control the buildings for 2 turns, right? So that's going to counter his first 2 turns of control. So if you have them at the end of the game and he has them at the beginning, they nullify, they cancel one another. So the only turn that we're looking at is turn 3, where he has all of them. So if he has 10 points, and if we get points for killing squads, right? We only need to kill 5 squads at some point in the game to nullify his turn 3. So he's gained 30 points at the beginning. We're gaining 20 at the end. We just need to kill 5 squads in between there. And so knowing how a game will progress, instead of just sitting down and go through the game and not knowing where you need to be at turn 5. We know in this game, right? And it's a very similar thing. If we are not at a certain point, if the Finns are not at a certain point, if this is turn 7 or turn 6 right here, the game is over. There's no point in playing anymore. The Finns can't get anybody off the map, right? You've not achieved the point where you need to be. And the other scenario in terms of points per turn is exactly the same thing. You have to analyze the scenario. Where is he going to be if I only take minimum number of buildings, 3, 4, 5 buildings, first turn 1, then 2 buildings turn 2, then 3 more turn 3. How many points will I be getting, and how many points will he be getting? There's going to come a point where the point values will swing in your favor. And that's the same thing in this scenario here. There's going to come a point where the Finns can break through, and then hopefully break through, if he doesn't fire enough, and get a couple units, 2 squads, 2 leaders off the board. That's 7 points. Well, if that's 7 points, what you do is you can calculate, if this was the situation here, and the Russians right here, and we've got these guys down here. Let's see. Oh my God. So if we have 1 squad, and 1 leader, if this was the remaining force of the Russians, right? We have some of these guys coming up. So if we get this bottom stack off the board, how many victory points will that be? If this guy comes over here, and this guy has to be unbroken, if we get those guys off the board on the bottom left of 21, how many points will that be? That's 5 points, right? 2 per squad, 1 for the leader. Can the Russians win this game if this is all he has left?
Yeah, if he gets 6 off.
Right, but if all he has left are these 2 units, he could only get 4 off.
Oh, right, there's machine gun, okay.
And so it doesn't matter if this is at turn 5. Let's say this is turn 5, and let's say the Finns want to go on a killing spree, and they did, which, to be honest with you, is a strategy. If I eliminate all the Russians and only leave a couple Russians left that he can't equal what I know I can get off, then the game ends right then and there. That's an instant win for the Finns, because he simply can't get more units off. And that's the same comparison in terms of, building control points per turn. We know he only has 4 points left to get off the board. So if we get 5, we don't need to get anybody else off. Nobody else needs to move off. We just win. It's an instant win. And that's what you have to think about when you're looking at a scenario. Is like, do I need to get all my guys off? Obviously, they're not getting off. You guys have played the scenario. they're not getting off. Some guys, if they could use to cut off guys, just like the Russians are using us, if you could break through his lines and get behind him so you can cut him off from reinforcing or getting back, then essentially you've reduced the number of guys he can get off. And he's not going to have a lot of guys back here. So that's why they call it fighting and withdrawal. If the Russians stay up front and do a hell of a defense up here and they stick up here, the Finns are going to break through. You're not stopping the Finns from breaking through. You have to drop back so you don't reach this point at the end game where all he has to do is move these guys off units to win. Now, if he had double the squads, right? A couple guys down here. Let's say there's another squad, over here somewhere. If you had a situation like this, now it's still a game because the guys on bottom can run off and this guy could run off and these guys could defend. Now these guys got to get off. Can they get off of 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns? We don't know. So knowing how many points he can get off has to come into your play. If these guys are broken and you failure to rout them, and you come down here and you get a 10-1 over here, something like that, and these guys are broken, these guys are going to be goners. And if this guy comes here and he breaks and he crawls this way, right? And this was the end of the game, or near the end of the game, the Russian turn's coming up, and these guys are even right here. That's a win, because these guys, either die for failure or out, and then these guys have to get off. And that doesn't matter. But again, that's focusing on the victory conditions, making sure you're taking everything into account. It's not just, okay, I've got more points off, let's see what the Russians can do. No, you know how many points the Russians can get off by looking at the board. In this situation, the Russians can only get 4. So do we need all these guys off the board? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We just move that guy off the board, game ends. These guys can, just sit here and defend. And then the game is just over. You don't need to move these guys off the board. If you're taking risks or whatever like that, or obviously you don't want to move in first, something like that. The same thing with a game, and this is more of an insta location, but you still have to count points. He's got 4, I've got 5. It's a give and take. Now, if it was just you need to get 12 points off the board, that's something different. At that point, you could definitely try to keep track of your units and know how many exactly can get off the board. But this one is a comparison. You need to get more points off than the Russian. You could win by getting a leader off as long as these guys block all the Russians from getting off. You could win by this guy. Even though he can get 4 points off, you could do that for whatever reason. But if you do that and you move one guy off the board, guess what? Now he needs both units off. And so that's something you might consider doing as well, right? Let's say there's a possibility of him getting off. Well, instead of just the one, weaken your front line, take another guy. Because that other guy forces both these units to go. If you only needed one guy could run the gauntlet and make it through, get lucky, and the other guy, is going to break. But in this case, both guys have to get lucky. And this is very similar to that starter kit scenario with the Allied miners. You guys may have played it. It's like the armored cars. So the armored cars are 1 point when they get off the map. So, and they need to capture, they need to get 4 points, a victory or 6 points.
Yeah, right. I know what you're talking about.
So if as the defender, there are 3 buildings of 2 points apiece. Right. Let me see more of my victory point thingy.
Yeah. S44, across the border.
Yeah, across the border. That was another thing. So if this building is a victory point building, I'm just going to clone it. And this point's a victory point building. And this point's a victory point building, right? And he has the armored cars. Let me pop an armored car. Allied miner. I don't know if they're Allied miner or not, but I'm just going to pull up some vehicles. Let's see. Let's pull this up. Okay. Oh shit! Are you kidding me? Why is it when you want to conceal them, you can't ever conceal them, and when you don't want to conceal them, they always get concealed? I don't know. So he's got his vehicles in the game. They're coming on, bop, 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 bop. So he needs 6 points, right? You've got a couple anti-tank weapons. You know, you're defending in some of these buildings, right? Doing what you can to save the motherland, that sort of thing. And let's see, these Finns aren't here. So he needs 6 points. So he could win by getting all 3 buildings, right? Or let's say best situation, all 4 tanks get off the board. How many buildings does he need to win?
Only one at that point.
Right. But he needs a building, right? Regardless of how many vehicles he gets off, he needs a building. If we simply destroy only one of these vehicles, wreck. The white wrecks are terrible. I'm just going to remove him. If we destroy one of these vehicles, how many buildings does he need to take, even if he moves the rest of these guys off? Just one's destroyed, these 3 get off.
Right, now he needs to take 2 buildings.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we destroy 2 vehicles and these 2 guys get off, how many buildings does he need to take?
Still only needs to take 2.
Still 2. So whether we destroy 1 or 2, he still needs to take 2. Now, if we destroy that 3rd one, and he gets this guy off, how many buildings does he need to take?
Now he needs to take all 3. Yeah.
Now he needs to take all 3. So, as both players, if you are the Allied miner and you lose 3 vehicles, are you moving this vehicle off the map?
No, it doesn't do you any good.
It doesn't do you anything. The only thing it does is lose you firepower, which you'll need to take these 3 buildings. So you need to understand that if once you lose 3, this guy has to stay on the board and help you fight. It does no good moving him off. And moving 2 guys off, I gotta be honest with you, once you lose 1 tank, I would at that point probably commit a lot the rest of your 3 tanks into just trying to annihilate as much as possible. If you lose enough, you have. So if we have these 3 tanks, how many buildings do we need? If these guys are going to get off during the game, how many buildings do we need to take?
You still need to take 2.
Right. So if we use these units, let's say we just cram up against this one building here. All 3 of them. I don't care if this guy's got anti-tank capabilities or not. We really don't care. Because if these 3 units help take this building, it's just like getting 2 tanks off. So we can, in essence, lose 2 tanks. Well, in this case, we can afford to lose 1 tank. Why? Because if we take this building, we still have the other 2 points that we can get off. We still need 2 buildings regardless. I'm not sure why I picked that one up. So at this point, we can risk a tank to get destroyed. And it actually could help us, especially if it's right here, right? If this turns into a wreck, what does that become for us?
Hindrance.
Yeah, it's a hindrance, and it gives us a spot where we can advance in the open. Now we have +1 terrain. It creates a terrain effect modifier for us to assault the next building. So if you're going to lose it, make sure you lose it in a spot that it bridges something. If this guy got destroyed here, and I hate these whites. I haven't updated this version yet. What have we just done? We've just connected all 3 buildings. That's what you want to do. If you know you're going to lose something, use them to connect the buildings so you guys can get across. Our infantry are going to get blasted if they get there. And let me get some minor infantry. Let's see. Let's say we have some 437s, right? If we're advancing up here, he's going to first fire here, first fire over here, blast them, subsequent. These guys are probably going to break. You know, we got a wreck there. Let's say a wreck here, even better. We've got terrain. That makes a big difference in how this guy can attack us. These guys are still going to pummel this guy at point blank, you know, a couple machine gun factors, you know, whatever, 4, 8, whatever. But it gives, you know, we can use our tanks, whether it's destroyed or not, we can park our tank there to give our infantry cover. So if he destroys it, it's the very same concept of breaking this unit in the open down here. If we break this guy in the open, that the 9-0 and this, let's say these guys are down here and the machine gun was up here. If we break him and that was his last movement factor, you know, he's moving this way. We just gave him a free movement phase. If we blow up this tank here, whether it's, you know, if we blow it up or leave it there, you know, whether that's good order or not, If we blow it up, it doesn't matter. For the Allies, it doesn't matter because it's still going to provide the cover we need to take those other 2 victory points. Loss of that unit, in this case, since you need to take 2 buildings anyway because you lost the tank early, is irrelevant only to the extent of it contributing to your victory points. It is relevant in giving your guys cover to secure the next victory points. This makes your game easier by having that tank blown up. Now, if you want to put your tank over here, I don't think I can undo it. Let's see. No, I gotta clone this. If you want to instead protect your vehicles from destruction, and you're over here instead of putting him there and having him destroyed there, and your guys are trying to advance over here and get their asses kicked, and let's say, well, I've got nothing else to do with my ATR. Let me just find an ATR here. I've got nothing else to do with my ATR. I might as well shoot this unit a couple hexes away. Can he kill these units easier? Sure. If he kills him over here, he turns into a wreck. Does this do us any good? Nothing. No good whatsoever. Our units are still exposed. Our other guys still probably have to get across the street, right? They're trying to get across the street to get to this loan. These guys are more vulnerable than this one. If he blows up over there, this tank does nothing for us. First of all, its machine guns are like 2 or 4. 4 plus 2, 2 plus 2 is nothing. Move him point blank. Move him right here. Move a good order tank right there. Have him blow it up. We're happy with that. Or have him blow it up over here. It's better to blow up over here because we're further away and now our squads can enter the building. And then go over here. At that point, this guy could possibly even go here. Because now this unit, moving this unit here, will defend these units. Because, okay, hey, I got an 8 even shot here. This is a much better shot. I don't have as good a shot as over here, so I might take the freebie. Again, it's the same thing as the 648 breaking in J6 point blank to the medium machine gun. It's the exact same concept. Break this guy. I don't care. I want you to break my 437 point blank, 8 firepower, no modifiers with an ELR of 1. I don't care if this unit gets disrupted because I have 16 up 2 in your face. You are going to be gone and broken. And therefore, I will achieve my victory conditions. This guy in the open serves that purpose. If you put it over here, you only give this unit 1 guy to fire at. The 16. You only give him 1 target to fire at. There's that guy. If this guy's here, you give him a juicier target. If he chooses the 437s, right? If he chooses them anyway, and he shoots and breaks them, guess what? What do we have? What situation do we have? These guys break. What situation do we
they're
have?
in trouble.
Do we care about these guys? What now? He fires. I'm sorry. Let me remove this here. So let's say in this turn, he destroys this tank with the ATR and he breaks these units in the defensive fire phase. Do we care? It hinders us, right? A little bit. But guess what? Now we have a point blank unit, 4 firepower, and this guy can add 6 firepower. That's 6 plus 2. If we kept him over here, because he chose to fire over here when this guy was point blank, or if he had something like this, right? And he fires on this guy and breaks them for whatever reason he would fire over there. I have no clue, especially if you're moving. And he doesn't fire on this guy, but he blows up your tank, right? And he breaks these guys. Now you have 8 plus 2. That's a great shot. If you're over here protecting your units because you don't want to get close to him, and he happens to get a lucky shot here because that's where I'm firing in the defensive fire phase, that's an 8 plus 2. I'm taking that shot all day. You know, if anything, I might fire an 8 plus 1 if you had non-assault moves in there. That's an 8 plus 1. It's going to receive. It's going to. Why would I fire 8 plus 1 there? It's going to leave 4 residual firepower. And when he moves the other unit in there, guess what? It's just like the squad is subsequent for firing, but he's firing for free, and that's a 4 plus 1, free shot. So if somebody else moves here, now I can fire 4 minus 2, free shot. Right? That's what the Russians looking for in this case. So put your guy's unit adjacent, close, If these guys break, they break. At that point, we're jumping into close combat. Because we freeze the unit, just like we froze the unit over here, right? Same concept. Freeze this unit here so other units can move up. Maybe we have a couple more squads next turn. You know, because we're probably not going to kill them in close combat, right? It's 1-to-1. You know, this is going to go on for years. You know, maybe we have another unit and he's going to cross. You know, we freeze this guy up, and maybe this guy can go over here, 1-3, you know, to cut some other guys off. They essentially freeze it up. And then if we want to jump into close combat, we can. Or we could fire into close combat. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. But put these guys, knowing that these tanks have only so much value. And that if you lose 3, this last one has 0 value as exiting. It must stay on the board at all costs. So it can help take the 3 buildings. At that point, we need all 3. If we're good, if we're close to winning, you know, if we're close to winning, then we can then move these guys off the board. If we've secured 2 and he can't counterattack, you might want to leave these guys for the end game and leave them off the board. If the Poles or if the Allied miners moves all of his tanks off in the beginning, then it just becomes an infantry fight. And, you know, there's only so much you can do. If you take the 1 building, that's fine. But what happens if you get stuck in a situation or a couple of his units pop up where you don't suspect them to? You know, the tanks, you can either go for that as a high risk situation, or you can use them as that. I would much rather lose a couple tanks to bridge between particular buildings or particular avenues of approach where you can get that defensive terrain. That's what you need to be looking at here. You need to analyze, okay, how am I going to use my tanks? I know my tanks have value by getting them off. But if we lose the tanks during the interim of the scenario, which you're likely to do, right? I mean, it's just going to happen. If you lose them during the interim of the scenario, now you have to base your plan off of losing at least 2 tanks. And you have to realize when you lose that 3rd tank, this guy is in a point of no return. He's staying on the board. And therefore, if you happen to move one guy off early and they lose all 3, you just lost the capability of this unit. Primarily to do what, gentlemen? Primarily this unit, because let's say he only has 2 firepower. What's this guy's primary mission in this game?
Cutting off those route paths.
Cutting off the route paths. At this point, you don't need to kill this guy. You don't need to enter close combat. You just stay outside and then you break him. And then when he breaks right here, he goes bye-bye. And then you could control the building. And then you move him over here to this building at range. At that point, you could move him at safe range. And then because you have a wreck here, you do the same thing. And then if he's got units in this location, you cut off the route pass. At that point, hopefully you could break him. And then he dies from that. And then you get the buildings that way. Cut route pass. Cut route pass. These are shit tanks. They're firing at guys in buildings. Not going to do a whole lot unless you're real lucky. But you are going to cut route paths 100% of the time. 100% of the time. And so, now again, that's another example of it's not just, okay, you need 6 victory points to win. Okay, here's 4 for the tanks and 2 for building. Well, what happens when shit hits the fan? Oh, I lost 2 tanks. Now I have to get 2 buildings. I lost 3 tanks. Now I have to get all buildings. And therefore, you must know you have to keep that other tank on the board. Right? You have to know where the game will progress and plan for it accordingly. You know, it will take some time to get used to that and encourage that. But that's what's necessary. Again, just like in fighting withdrawal, why can we move the Finns past the Russians, even though they're right next to us, like down here? Why can we just move instead of firing? Because of our nationality characteristics. Not only do we have 8 morale, which you can't see because we're not only do you have 8 morale, but you also have the self-rally capability, which nobody else has other than Cruz. If he breaks, we don't care. We really don't care if he breaks. We can be stuck out in the open. There's low crawl. We don't care. He's not going to have enough units to bring to bear to keep these guys DM'd. And if he does, good. Because these guys that aren't in DM are going to continue to move. Fire on this guy all you want, to your heart's content, Russian. Because these guys are getting off. And the other guys are pinning down your other units. So those guys can get off, and these guys could potentially rally, hopefully within 2 turns. Because it's a pretty short scenario. But morale, our high morale, high firepower, and our self-rally capability is what makes the Finns, just crazy. That's why a lot of people are, my Finns are gods. But yeah, because when you break them, they don't need leaders. They don't need leaders. They just route back.
They only had smoke.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why the fires are burning here. That's why that's the big key there, is to allow them to run down here, because otherwise you just put guys here and you just lay a whole bunch of residual firepower down there. And again, that's game design, right? I just put 2 squads here, 2 squads here, and no Finns are getting down here, because your first squad fires, and then subsequent fire may rain. The other squad fires, so you have six hexes of residual firepower. I mean, hell, you probably put them up a little further, probably right here and here, and you could put 6 hexes of residual firepower, and those are all free shots at that point, right? And you want the free shots. The Russians want as much residual firepower as possible. But again, that's using your nationality abilities, using what you got in your OB. This is what we have in our OB, a little shitty tank. Can't kill a lot of stuff, but it can cut all route paths, and I can move there quite safely and very fast, especially on the road. Just run up here, cut route paths, come down here, cut this guy's route path, right? And do you move the tank first? Maybe not. Maybe you move a couple of infantry units first. Maybe they break, and then he comes down afterwards, because now he's first fired, and he can't fire at your tank now. Now your tank is protected, and now can cut route paths for this unit here. Hopefully, maybe half your guys are broken. And if that doesn't work, then we just mob it, right? Yeah, in that case. And another thing you could do, especially if they're tanks in SK, what else can we do? Let's say we got these guys right here, and this is a big ass stack. This is a big stack. Let's clone him. You don't see this a lot in a lot of SK games, but consider it. You've got that in this hex, and we've got 2 squads that need to get in that building. This is SK. What are we doing?
Can we sleaze freeze in SK?
You can. You just drive the tank into the hex. Right. You're going to take a bog, you take whatever. You might be able to shoot you with ATRs, but that's essentially the sleaze freeze of SK. And you can actually fire on him at this point. And then these guys can do what they need to do. Of course, if he doesn't fire, but this is an option. But most of the time, guys are in buildings in SK, and a lot of guys don't like bogging their tanks in buildings. But hey, if it's a victory point building, that's where we want to be anyway.
Why not? Why not just do the vehicle bypass movement right next to the building then, if you don't want to bog it?
It doesn't bypass not applicable in SK.
Ah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, you've got to occupy the terrain. You've got to occupy the terrain.
Right.
Gotcha.
And right, in SK, you don't have to worry about crashing into the cellar either.
Right, exactly. So it's just a bog. So you're just crashing into the building. And again, even if you crash in the building, let's say he takes a pot shot with his ATRs. What did you just get? If I crash into the building, I just got a +3 TEM. So not only am I moving, not only am I small target, but I got a +3 TEM.
Oh, right. Yep, that's true. Yep.
So it's actually harder for him to hit me when I'm right on top of his ass than is if we're moving adjacent to him. If I'm moving adjacent here, that's the same thing as me being stopped in his hex. Actually it's better, because if I'm stopped in his hex, it's +3, +1 for size. This is simply just +2, +1 for size. I'm better off being on top of him. Sure, he can close combat me later on, but
Well, he can reaction fire. SK does have reaction fire.
the close combat reaction fire.
Yeah, close. Yeah, there. Yeah, yes. SK does have close combat reaction fire.
Okay, but if he does so, that's fine, because if it is a close combat reaction fire, then they'll be marked with a CC. And so essentially what we're doing is stopping him from shooting the other units.
Right.
And then these guys can...
Unless he wrecks you, unless he does manage to blow you up.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, even if he does, at least he's first fired.
Yes, that is true. Yeah.
And then you could possibly throw a unit here and then have some guys run around the back. It gives you opportunities. So don't be afraid. I mean, obviously there's 3 squads here, so that's a huge risk. But if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. You know, just realize that this, instead of just sitting here shooting, 37s at him and 2+3 shots, which aren't going to do anything to him, this is at least going to have at least a reaction from him somehow, whether he ignores you or whatever. He'll destroy you in close combat most likely, but at that point, hopefully we got some guys in the building. I mean, that's the point, right? You're not just doing this willy-nilly and not doing and just kind of sitting over here. This guy just happens to, I'm just going to randomly move in the building. Well, if you don't have anybody supporting him, coming in and helping him, then there's no point. Then you're just throwing the vehicle away, right? I mean, because he will essentially get destroyed at that point. But there is that. So again, it's just realizing that these other opportunities are involved. He's not going to be doing anything here but other than cutting around pass. But if you really need these units gone and you have some units that can move up on these guys, then consider driving right into his hex. Do you want to move this guy first? Maybe not. Maybe move this guy here. Maybe move this guy over here. So maybe he fires 2 units at him. Maybe 2 units fire, right? And then the top guy is not first fired. So when you move into that hex, then his defensive capabilities have just been reduced by a considerable margin, because now he only has 1 unit that hasn't first fired. So you may break this guy, but if that's part of the plan, because other guys are coming from this building over here, 1, 2, 3 advance, and they split over there. Those guys aren't broke. If that's part of the plan, that's fine. Because this is going to be 8+2. Well, if you move into it 1, 2, 3, 4, that might be an 8+2. That's reasonable. It's better than 8-2. Right here, 8-2 better than that. So breaking units is fine as long as you can draw that fire. So again, it's just using your what's in your OB, what their capabilities are. 8 morale, self rally, volume of units for the green guys, tanks that cut route pass, right? If we can get on those particular units or blow up vehicles in front of it, have vehicles blown up, knowing that we can't do anything to them anyway, maybe we need to bridge. Maybe we need to bridge it over here. Create a hindrance so these guys can move here without getting shot off -2. Maybe assault move advance phase. Maybe that's all the further you need to get, or you want to take. Maybe that's the only risk you have to take. Assault move +1, gentlemen, instead of -1. That's a 2 difference on the chart. Not 1, but 2. So this thing here, even if they'll get blown up, it still serves a purpose. And you're going to lose some of your vehicles in your games. Just lose them in the right spots. Just lose them in the right spots. Do I lose them? Or do I gain something from that? If this guy's out in the middle of the road, down the road here, and you guys take massive long-range shots with ATRs from here, these guys aren't doing us any good, because the battle's not going to be over here. The battle's raging right here. Drive if you know he's got some good shots on you, you can't avoid it. Screw it. Drive him straight up next to him. Guess what? If we move a unit, let's see if it were like this, right? Let's say both these guys have blown up. If we move a unit right here, what are we looking at? +2 hindrance. That's a +1 shot from here. Non-assault movement, that's a +1 shot. And then we're in the building. Are we getting there? Are we getting there by any stretch of the imagination, any other day of the week? He just has to fire a 4-2. So if he wants to damage us, that 4-2 shot is equivalent to the rest of those units at a +1. He'll have to fire all those units to counteract all the hindrances if you assault move, to counteract those pluses. And so it all depends on how much firepower he wants to pursue on you. And again, that's another thing, right? If he's forced to fire this much firepower at that range, it gives somebody else, maybe somebody's moving over here and needs to make it down around this corner. Yeah, give him that shot. Hell, give him this shot. Don't make it too obvious. Give him this shot. He might take that one, maybe 8, maybe 12. And then these guys can scoot because that's at higher, longer range. That's how you get these guys across in better position. These guys are free. And if he has to deal with 3 squads up here, guess where's his attention? He may have to move up here. And then this guy's probably going to route in the building, right? Route here, self-rally later. A couple turns later, a couple of rally phases later. Now he's got to deal with these guys. And then guess what this guy's going to do? When he rallies, he's going to capture that building. Tank's going to move here. He might move here. These guys break. What happens? Dead. They're not routing this direction. So this broken unit that got broken here, which allowed these guys to come over here because these guys took a shot. You gave him a decent shot. Break here. Is he going to come after him? He might. If he does, the other victory building is less, and so these guys still got up here. Well, I'm not so sure that he may do that. He might. It all depends on your opponent. That's up to you to determine that, to read that. But this is an option. This is a possibility. Obviously, the more units that you have over here, if you had 2 squads there, you know, break one if you got 2, because especially this is more threatening, right, than these guys back here. He's assuming that you're just going to assault move here, like most players will just move anyway, right? You know, let me get rid of this damn thing here. Right. I think that's a fair bet that if you've got a stack of units here, he's not thinking these guys are unit down here. Why? Because I said, well, I've got a 12 minus 2 right there. There's no way he's going to move there. But if you distract him, this guy breaks. Okay, we don't care. Now, guess what? He gets to move here. Let's say he only fired 2 guys. You know, he might fire them all. He fires 2 guys. He's got another guy to cover this road. All right, he can't subsequent first fire those other 2 guys and this guy. So this guy's a free entry there unless he fires him. If he doesn't fire him, we get to our objective where we wanted to go. Now, these guys might indeed assault move or advance phase, or assault move and advance phase in this location there. That might be the secondary plan. We've got where we wanted to go. Right? We've got our 1 victory building. How do we get to this one? Well, maybe something like this has to happen. You have to blow this tank up here. Maybe you have to blow it up here. Probably blow it up here better because now both sides can use this wreck as a potential jumping off point. And you never know. You know, that's something to consider. I mean, 3 squads in the building is still pretty strong, but you just gotta make sure you coordinate your guys when you're attacking a building, when you're taking an objective, when you're moving at the end of the street. You want to make sure that if you want this unit to get to this location, that if that is the objective for the entire movement phase, assault move these guys here first, or maybe not assault move, just move him there. 2. You know, he might think you're going to move here. Screw it, I'm going to fire on you then. I think you're going to move in that location there. 2, boom. Right? He first fires a couple guys. Then you got same thing here. Go 2. Maybe he thinks you're going to move here. Or maybe he thinks he wants to take advantage of the -1 move in the open, or non-assault movement rather, right? And the other guy fires. Okay, 4 plus. Let's say it's a wooden building, to make it even juicier. Say 4 plus 1. I'm gonna take a 4 plus 1. Boom, everyone's first fired. Then this guy, 1, 2, 3, and then advance. If this is your objective, make it happen. Don't move him first. Do not move him first. He's gonna get shot, and he's gonna break right here. 100% of the time. And then you'll bitch and complain that you have to route here. You may have to route here. You don't want to route there because he could fire on you again. You'll have to route back here, get a leader over there, rally this 6 morale shit unit. This is not a Finnish. A Finnish unit, you might be able to lead that way. This unit, you cannot lead that way because he's not rallying. Even with a leader, he needs a 3. It's not going to happen. Even with a 7, it may not happen. So this guy, you need to treat differently. Know what you're dealing with. You have green units that have lower morale. Risk a couple guys here. You know, risk 1 guy here. Maybe move a guy the entire way here. 2, 3. He's going to fire somebody. He's just going to fire somebody. And at that point, one of these guys may have to go here. He might fire the other guy. And then your objective is achieved down here. Because this guy's going to break. Is he going to die? He's not going to die. This guy's not going to die unless you roll a 12 in your morale check. And then you simply route back to the building you came from. This guy advances up here. We'll protect this unit. And then you better have a leader here. Because if you're doing that, you're going to have a leader in this location. And then eventually your leader will rally that unit. But You got where you need to go. Maybe there's a victory point location over here. Maybe there's a HMG that you left behind that you need to go grab. I don't care. But your objective was to get that unit up there. You have to use more than one unit to get what you need to get done. One guy is not going to win the game for you. It's just not going to happen unless it's at the end of the game, you're out of line of sight, and he just keeps running, off the board. You have to coordinate your units. Bait your shots out. Bait his shots out. Let's say he doesn't take them, right? Let's say he doesn't take the shot down here. And then you enter the building. Do you enter here or do you enter here? I don't know. Enter here, it's safe. You might be able to enter here. Why could you enter here? Because you can advance fire, right? If he doesn't take the shot here, and you have all these other units to move, which location are you going to go through? He just gave you information on how he plays the game. He's not shooting at this. Let's say this tank is not destroyed there. He's not shooting at that potential 12 even shot or 12 plus 1 shot. If he's not shooting here, why would he shoot at 12 plus 2? There's no reason why he would shoot here. He should shoot here instead of here. If he shoots here, then he's giving you a better terrain to begin with, and that therefore you're learning more about your opponent. So if you're in this location, doesn't shoot here, you're not moving here, right, to make it safe. You're moving here to give him another opportunity. If he doesn't take that opportunity, what did you gain? What did you gain from moving here versus moving here? 2 things you gained. 1, information that if he doesn't fire at you here, that he's not going to I'm not sure that he's looking for something else specifically. And at that time, your plans may change. And you also gain an advanced fire shot. That's a 2 plus 2. Better than nothing in SK. If you're down here, you don't get that shot. So he doesn't fire here. Just move there. You're in better terrain. You're better off here than you were here. And the whole point was to try and draw fire. But now he will. Maybe he will. He's, oh shit, I should have shot at him. He's in the victory building. Now I need to shoot at him. Maybe you draw your shot. And guess what? You're better off because now you're in better terrain. You're more likely to survive here than you were here. And if he doesn't fire there again, then you get the free bonus of a free. He just gave you a 2 plus 2 shot in the advanced fire phase. Does he want to do that? It's not too bad. It's a plus 2. 2 plus 2 is not going to really hurt him that much. But hey, we've all been there. We've all seen that 3 come out of somebody's ass. And maybe he's anticipating this move. At that point, maybe drive the tank point blank, right? Draw some fire, something. Maybe the tank comes up then, comes in the fray. If he gets destroyed, if this tank gets destroyed, will that tank give you modifiers in the movement phase? The same movement phase that it was destroyed?
No.
Nope. So don't move these guys on top of him unless you definitely want him to try and fire. Because that's going to be an open ground hex. Only in the advanced fire phase will this essentially become a non-moving terrain
actually,
feature.
it becomes that in the route phase.
Not in the advanced fire? Oh, yeah, the route phase.
The route phase.
Which means you could route through that particular location will be open ground.
Yeah.
So, at that point, you would have to do something else. But again, at that point, you're gaining more information as your opponent takes shots or doesn't take shots. You're gaining information on how he likes to take his shots, what he's defending. Know what he's defending. Now know the game situation. If the game situation is he needs to defend the stone building at all costs, and he doesn't take the shot over here, then he's rather astute. He's on the ball. But if he takes these bullshit shots over here, knowing that you have a whole bunch of guys across the street ready to run for the objective, then his shot selection is poor. That his target selection is poor. And you could take advantage of that. And you will take advantage of that the rest of the game. And any other time you play him. Until he learns shot selection on what threats are still remaining in the game that will cause him to lose. Dice rolls, I mean, if you, and this is why I'll just end the note on log your games, gentlemen. If you don't submit them to me, I don't really care. Log your games. Go over them a couple days later after you lose the game. After you win the game, go over a couple days later, right? And as I said before, a long time ago in the Tactical Tuesday, simply Look at one thing. You're not looking at the whole game. Do not look at the whole game because you won't see it. It's like, oh my God, the Rams beat the Niners, 45-0. They kicked their ass. Well, you sure? You sure about that? Maybe every single time let's say the Rams kick off first, right? Niners, they fumble on the 1 yard line. The Rams get the ball on the 1 yard line. They walk it in, score. And they do that time after time after time. They keep fumbling the ball on the 1 yard line. Did they kick their ass? No, the Niners lost the game. The Niners lost the game by fumbling on the 1. The Rams didn't do anything to win the game. The Niners lost the game. I used that same example before where there was a drive, there was a game-winning drive between two other football teams, right? Well, 85 yards were penalties. There were only 15 yards of total offense in that drive. 85 yards were penalties, so that the offensive team only had to go 15 yards to win the game. Essentially earned 15 yards. The other team gave them the rest of the field. So the Niners gave the Rams the game. So even though at the end of the game you may have rolled 3 threes or 15 12s or shit like that, you see you got diced. Go back, look at one thing in your game, and the easiest thing to look at is what, of course, I always say is routing. Look to where you're routing your units. Do your units break here? If your unit breaks here, right? If this guy breaks here, and you've got a building here and a building here, which building are you routing to? Which building are 90% of the players going to route to? Not you guys, the other guys.
Sorry, I missed that one. What are our choices?
If you got a broken, you say he does fire on you and he breaks you here, which building are you routing to?
Well, let's see. We always follow your advice. Route forward.
You're routing to the victory.
Yep.
Because that forces him to do something. You're going to self-rally eventually. That's a 6. Anybody can roll a 6.
Well, unless you're me.
5, 6, 7. Okay, 12. There's your 12. He just died. This guy just lost the game for you. Okay, so, but if he's here, he's still broken. And if you rally him, you still have to get shot at again. If you're here, he has to do something about you. Route to your objective. If you can. Obviously, if there's a guy here, you're not going to route there. But if this were the generic situation, go here. Now he has a choice. This guy's not going to have a DM soon. He might self-rally, or you might have some little 6+1 or 7-0 leader coming over to help him. Give him a key piece of candy bar, little boy. But you're going to be routing here. Most players would just, I got to route away from you. I'm going away. I'm routing here. Don't. Even if this costs the unit, even though one of these guys is going to come down here and force you out of the building. What did you just do? What did you just do when you routed here, knowing that he's going to move to eliminate you? What'd you do? You weakened his defense. You just split him. Now it's 3 versus 2 versus 3 versus 3. And you might have that unblown up tank, wherever it may be, come to help you.
Dude, I got a route question for you.
Okay.
It's simple, of course, but we'll see. So this guy is going to route away from this guy up here in R1.
Okay.
Now, if he routes to S3, it goes 1, 2, 3, correct? Because I have to go outside of the building before I go inside the building.
Yes, if that's a row house, yes.
So he would be interdicted between R2 and S3.
Correct.
Now, if he was to go to R3, it would still be 1, 2, 3, but he is so near the building that the 248 can't interdict him. Is that correct?
Yeah, he has to draw a line of sight to that vertex.
To that vertex. Okay, that was it. That's the simple answer. Okay.
Okay, next question. Let's say R3 had an enemy unit.
I think he would be failure to route because even though these are black lines, you're still next to the unit.
Nope, no line of sight. This unit, essentially what I'm doing is eliminating this position as a particular potential route. Let's say you want to route to S3. Is this unit eliminated for failure to route in ASL?
Well, this was a question that we were coming up with, and we read the rules as close as we could, and we said you're adjacent to it, so you can't. But I guess the line of sight thing really matters.
Look at the rule again. Is the adjacent capitalized or is it not capitalized?
Right. Right. If the adjacent is capitalized, then part of being adjacent is you have to have a line of sight.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, could you low crawl S3 then?
Okay, that's where we're going. Who is that?
That's Mark. Mark B.
Mark B. Okay, excellent. Mark, could you low crawl to S3?
I would think so, but it's not open ground, so that's why I'm kind of.
Well, he's subject to interdiction, right? We all agree on he's subject to interdiction at the R2, S2, S3 vertex, right? So you're adjacent to an enemy unit and you're getting interdicted or resorting to low crawl. Okay. Will he... Well, first of all, will he surrender to the unit? Let's assume that they're not going to massacre them and some of the bullshit special will go. Let's assume these are just normal nationalities instead of these weird ones. Will he surrender to this unit if this unit has to route in this thing? Let's...
He has to go interdiction, yeah.
So, can he legally route to S3 and not surrender?
Well, right. So the only way he can avoid interdiction is through low crawl, and I think that activates the prisoner rule, doesn't it?
Correct.
Right.
What are we missing here?
Could he go upstairs?
He can go upstairs, right?
Yep.
Right? That's Mark, right?
Yep.
The other Mark.
Let me crank your volume up here, Mark. You're really light.
Oh, all right.
Okay, so he can go upstairs. Does he have to go upstairs? Does he have to go route upstairs to avoid elimination?
Well, he can take interdiction to S3, can he?
But that's what we're looking at, right? If he takes interdiction to S3, is he eliminated? Or surrenders? Whichever. Let's say no quarters involved. Let's say no quarters involved. Is he eliminated? Well, actually, we wouldn't be eliminated anyway.
Well, if no quarter is invoked, then he can.
Then he can. So let's just say does he surrender if he wants to go to S3? And the answer is no, because there is another possible destination which will not cause his elimination and surrender, and that's level 1 location. Because
So because he has a choice, because he does have a legal route that avoids him surrendering, he can then low crawl to S3?
Correct.
Okay.
Huh.
Because there is a path. This is not the only, because when you read it, it says can only route away from a unit using low crawl or subject to interdiction.
All right. So it's the only that's
and the level 1 gives us an out, and that's the same thing over here in T4, right? When you guys play this game, note that this is a multi-story location. I could route from there. Could be fins right here on both sides, and I can route backwards freely without surrendering because there are multiple levels I can route up. I will take interdiction, mind you. You're not low crawling because he's just going to obliterate you anyway. You're running backwards because you need bodies, right? Unless you want to block that hex, and he's just going to obliterate you. But the first level is what you need to take into consideration, especially on buildings like this. And because even this building like this, because it's a small building, there are first levels in these locations here.
Okay. Oh, that's all right. Well,
So
learn something in ASL. Okay, that's always good to know.
Right.
So if a broken unit is next to an enemy unit in a row house, he doesn't have to route then? Let's say it's over here.
Correct.
There's no line of sight, right? So
Correct.
that's not a known enemy unit.
So
So he can stay put.
He can stay right there all day long.
We were going through that for a while, weren't we, Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were.
Remember, that's not capital adjacent. When you see capital adjacent, bells, you
Line of
need to
sight.
have line of sight. And it came up into one of my scenarios that I played. Essentially, a vehicle was in bypass on one side to look at. Like I say, a vehicle was in... vehicles. Where's the vehicle? A vehicle was in bypass here, right?
Mhm.
and there was my broken unit here, and let's say he did the same. Well, let's say he was here, and or here, and he did the same thing. He routed to S3. Well, he can't interdict him in S3, can he? Can't interdict him here. Why? Because it's through the building.
Cool.
So there's no, even though he's in the exact same hex, when he routes to here, he doesn't see him, and so therefore there's no interdiction. That's where the capital adjacent comes involved.
And low crawl does not have to be open ground, right? It's just one hex. That's the only stipulation.
Correct. Most of the time, why would you want to low crawl? Most of the time people will low crawl in the open ground for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you want to low crawl in like here, maybe because you just want to move one hex, right? I mean, there could be reasons for that. But if I'm in this building here, right, or if I'm in this building here, let's say I'm this building, low crawling this location really doesn't do anything for me because I could just simply select this as a destination and I've reached my destination.
Yeah.
And then I could choose to continue because of the rules of routing allows me to continue, but I don't have to. And so low crawling this, there might be a couple game situations where that might come into play, but I don't think that's too often. It's probably something really wonky, but yeah, absolutely. I could low crawl from here to the brush.
Yeah, no, I was thinking back in that row house example where he's going to be subject to interdiction at the vertex.
Right.
So,
right, yeah, that's one of them. And this one you'd want to low crawl too. Let's say you just want to go right here because you want to block movement through there. If I low crawl here, guess what? If this guy wanted, if there's a rush unit here, and again, if he wants to move off the edge of the board, what did I just do? Even if I'm broken, he can't move through my hex. Then he has to bypass over here and kind of move around me, or go over here and go over the wall. When SK, he has to go through the building, right? So in SK, you might want to do something like this, is just low crawl here, right? Because that blocks, that essentially increases his movement factors it takes him to get past you. And so that is a viable strategy in SK, where you're just...
that might deny some TEM there too with the brush by forcing him out in the open there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so there are situations, and again, that's just what we've been going over before is, okay, maybe I want my unit broken. Maybe I wanted, for whatever reason, I'd break him. If he doesn't break me here, then guess what? If he breaks me, then I have a blocking mechanism back here. Let's say I have...
Stu, I got a really screwy ASL question for you. You
Well,
ready?
every question's a screw.
Okay. All right. Putin's here, so he can chime in on this too.
All right.
Let's say I don't know. Let's just say this unit's concealed.
All right.
No, that didn't work. Ta-da. So this tank, he doesn't. This guy, whatever. This tank can't be hurt by small arms fire or anything. I don't know what I did there.
No, that's a movement thing. I've tried to adjust it for movement. The new Vassal doesn't do it. The VSQL. I'm trying to create movement tracks for vehicles. To make it. It happens in VSQL, but I don't think the mechanism works in Vassal for whatever frickin' reason. I have no clue. But I think
anyway,
he's right here.
If this tank is to bypass here, let's say bing bing, whatever. It's my understanding the rule is this guy has to unconceal and shoot at him no matter what.
Well, he doesn't have to shoot at him.
It's only if I believe it correctly, it's only if he stays there, not if
Right, you like stayed and bypassed, didn't you?
Yeah, no, because since I stayed in bypass and yeah, like what I said, delayed everything else, you had to have lost the concealment. But if I just kept moving, you could have kept it.
Okay. Well, first of all, right here you actually have close, possible street fighting, but we're not going to bother with that. See, let's just see right here. I think that's not what I want to do. I think they got the rule. I don't know the basis of it, but if you bypass here and end in bypass, the unit will automatically lose any concealment that he has. In bypass, mind you. He's not in your location, but in bypass, you will automatically lose concealment at the end of the round. Plus, if you're in
If he
motion,
stops, right?
what's that?
If he stopped, right? If he stays in motion, you don't lose it.
I believe so. I'd have to double check it just to be clear on you. I don't want to give you guys any false information. But anyway, what it does is it will automatically force loss concealment. If the tank drives into the building and crashes through the dining table where these guys are eating their break because they've finally got the rations came through in Stalingrad, and he drives through the building and parks into the dining room area, you simply have to pass. You simply have to pass your like pre-AV task check or whatever like that. You pass a morale check, which is based on your 7 morale, and if you pass it, you don't lose morale. So when he's on top of you, you have a chance and opportunity to maintain your morale. When he's beside the building, you automatically lose it. I think it should actually be opposite, but that's just the way the rules are.
Weird.
But
Okay.
he can literally enter your location and you can maintain concealment, whereas bypassing, you will automatically lose it based upon whether he has to be in motion or not motion, whatever. And that's in the rules. And so that's really odd, which actually facilitates more sleaze freeze movement than the actual risk of bog and cellar and all that bullshit here. I think there should be a balance between risk and reward. That's my opinion. If I'm going to force you to lose concealment automatically, there should be some risk involved. Here, bypassing in motion, if that causes you loss of concealment, then there's almost no risk to me, to be honest with you. And that's why this is performed a lot. So, but yeah, that's something you got to get used to, that sort of thing. Because even with the street fighting, I mean, he's still in motion. I mean, -2 and +1, +2 for moving, -1. It's still gonna be +1. It's still gonna be a low percentage. I mean, it is an immobilization possible kill for sure. But if you've got, if this is a steadfast, very important location, and he's got units just like we were describing over here on the left-hand side, then he just walks up on you and he just walks all of his units on you and blast you. These guys literally just walk up, surround you, and blast you. Yeah, it usually leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. And the funny thing about that is, I was just talking about this the other day, is most of the people that don't like this are the players that don't play the Germans. Because if this happens to the Germans, right? That's the Finnish unit. Let's say it's a German unit, right? What does a German unit have that these Russians don't? Panzerfaust and anti-tank magnetic mines.
Oh.
So that's a much bigger risk here versus the reverse, where Germans are doing that to the Russians. A huge risk difference. When I'm playing the Americans against Germans, I can't do that with my American tanks because every single German can fire a Panzerfaust right through my tank. And so you just have to stay at range. Whereas the Germans can do that to your 6.66s all day long with the 50 caliber machine gun. And so the balance isn't there. And when I first started playing, it was always Americans and Russians versus my opponent always played the Germans. And so I always had to get hosed by not having that option where he had that option. And I didn't think it was fair that he had that option, but I didn't. Well, I did, but my risk is much higher, obviously. And so it's like, I'm kind of about fairness. And yes, do they have Panzerfaust capability? Absolutely. And that's another part of the game you have to take into consideration. You have to know that the Germans have Panzerfausts, or Romanians. I played a game where the Romanians have Panzerfausts and anti-tank mech. They're kind of an odd nationality. You got to read it.
Have them too.
I don't know about Hungarians. I don't even know. It's one of those weird things, but
I love Hungary.
yeah, Hungarians. I just love the green. I just love the green counters. But yeah, it's one of those things where you have to do your homework. And this is where anytime you play a scenario and you're playing somebody you haven't played in a while, even if you're playing the Americans again or the Russians, go back through and read their nationality distinctions. Maybe, the scenarios aren't going to tell you, hey, you should sub out an 8-1 leader for a 10-0 commissar in this one. It's not going to tell you that. It's just a rule. You have to know, the year of the scenario. First of all, you need to look at, am I playing Russians? Okay, first thing you should think about, can I get a commissar? 1944? Nope. Okay, that option's off the table. 41, 42, win in 42. I don't know. Let's go check the rule. I don't know. Check the rule. Oh, 3 September, October, I don't know. Whatever the date might be. Maybe it's pre-42. Check that stuff up on the Russians. Because sometimes some as odd as it may seem, and I don't really like it when designers do that, but some scenarios are, quote, designed for you to sub out a guy for a commissar. I would much rather have them just throw the commissar in there. If that's part of the way the game was supposed to be played, throw it in there. Don't leave it up to the players to forget some rule that they usually don't come across, right? Just throw it in there. If you think he needs a commissar during your great play testing, your 2 games that you played to play test the scenario, you use the commissar, right? And it helps the scenario. And if you've lost twice because you didn't have one, just put it in the game. You want the guys to have a good time. You don't want them to, oh Jesus, I have to know these really weird rules all the time. A lot of players are just your average players. They don't spend year in and year out reading the damn rule book. And they're certainly, if they don't like playing Russians, they don't give a shit about the Russians. They're not going to know the date for commissars. Just put it in there, And in the next scenario I'm going to play a scenario coming up with Kevin, and I'm going to pull something that I didn't see anybody else pull in the scenario, but that's what the rules allow. And it might give me an advantage, might not. But, it's one of those things. I just think that if it's good for the scenario, it's good for the gameplay, just throw it in there, I think you could have like more introductory type scenarios. Like I honestly kind of like the scenarios. Hey, set up your squads within 2 hexes of this. Well, guess what? It makes my setup a lot quicker because I spend way too much time thinking about the game. I have to set up in building X5. Okay, boom. All my guys are X5. That's all I have to worry about. We're playing in 5 minutes. Dice are rolling in 5 minutes. Instead of having to worry about also the bullshit. Set up between hex rows H and Q. Well, that cuts down my board a lot. It's much easier, much more conducive to have a faster game. The game's long enough as it is. I'm going to spend another 5 or 10 minutes digging through the rule book to check on certain things. Yeah, you should always check chapter H for your vehicles. Anytime you have a vehicle, anytime you have a gun, because you never know what's going on with it. That thing may have canister. If it's an American weapon, it could have canister, which just destroys everything, right? It could be a vehicle that has a rear machine gun, or machine guns can only fire at 9 o'clock, like a lot of Japanese tanks do, 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, the 12:30 for 35 seconds. I don't know, So a lot of those have weird vehicle notes on those. And that's the fun about playing early wars. You deal with a lot of those weird ass vehicles, and you can become very, very, very cool about it, especially, based upon how the scenario is. You could have a rear machine gun and a forward firing machine gun will park between 2 squads. You get to fire at both of them. That's kind of cool, point blank. It's something you could possibly do. And he's not going to see it coming because most likely he hadn't read your vehicle notes. But you always have to read those vehicle notes, and because the weird stuff can happen, weird stuff can show up. But again, like I said, it's an okay idea. Any scenario that you're dealing with is reading the victory conditions can be very simple. Exit more points than your opponent. Okay, that's very simple. But once we reach a point about mid-game, you have to know, okay, if I get some guys off, or if I'm accumulating points over here, or if I can move my tanks off the board to score more victory points, if something changes within that, how does that affect the game? If I have if I have 8 units, 8 guys to move off, and he has 9 guys to move off, I'm not going to move all my guys off because he just said moves 9 guys off. I move 1 guy off and have 8 guys defend, and so then he has to get, 1 or 2 guys off, make it hard on him, and there's a sweet spot in there where, like I said, if he's got to move 2 squads off, he's most likely going to lose. But if he only has to move 1 squad off, he might get lucky. And that's what you can avoid by knowing to make it more difficult on your opponent. Make it more difficult on your opponent. Don't give him the easy. If you only give him 1 unit to shoot at, who's he going to shoot at 100% of the time? Those guys. If you give him multiple units and you don't want him to shoot at 1 unit, give him a sweet target over here. He's probably going to break. But the guys you don't want him to break, that you need to advance fire, are going to be safe.
Stu, I got a machine gun question if you're ready for another one.
Sure.
Okay, so we got bow machine gun, coaxial, and anti-aircraft.
All right.
And they shoot 8, 12, and 8 hexes.
Correct.
Now, if a machine gun shoots more than 16, it needs a leader. So those are all limited to 16, is that correct?
They are not.
Unless they have a leader, a tank leader in the
They are not. They are not. Check the rule again. It will say like support weapons directed by a leader. Tanks are not subjected to that limitation. They fire out the double range.
Okay.
So
right, thank you.
So bow machine guns can fire out to 16, coax is 24. You know, I think what they say, I think in the notes, again, when you read in the notes, I think it says, you know, coaxial machine guns, because they're coax, you know, they have telescopic sights alongside the main armament. And so they're using those telescopic sights that's what their game description is on that. And 99.9% of your games don't have armor leaders anyway. So that would seem kind of odd that your machine gun can fire 12, but only go out to 16.
Okay.
But yeah, check that rule again, and you'll see the little minor distinction between like infantry fire versus, it'll say like any non-vehicular fire or something like that. It'll have like some sort of little stipulation. And just like we covered earlier, broken units not in melee have to route. Right? It'll be something like that.
Okay.
And but yeah, but that's what I have for you tonight, guys. If you could have followed that way, just in terms when you're playing your games, because you guys are playing really well. You know, I've watched your games. You know, all you guys are playing really well. You might not think you're playing really well, but I think you're playing really well. I think you're thinking about routing, which no other ASLer does. Well, not saying no, but you know what I mean. The average ASL player has been playing for 20 years, probably doesn't think about as much as you guys do. So that part of the game is getting down pat. You're working. I mean, we've had first fire questions that come up today. You're working at the next step of understanding what your guys can do. And this is why I kind of wanted to bring this up, where I've seen where you've reached the point of you understanding the basics of the game. And I think you guys have pretty much got it down pat. I mean, you guys are handling armor pretty decently now, and you're firing smoke. I see a lot more smoke on the board. It's good. And now we go to the next level where, okay, let's really look at our characteristics. You know, we have 8 morale. What can we do with 8 morale versus a 7 morale versus a 6 morale? You know, and what I covered in some of the other things. And now you want to take, as you're learning, as you're getting comfortable in your ASL knowledge, start scratching that next layer. Peel that other layer of the onion off. Okay, I've got green Romanian units. What are they going to give me? You know, what can I do with these guys that I can't do with, you know, 468 Germans? All right. I may have to sacrifice a couple more units to get to my objective. And it may take longer to get there, but that may be necessary. Route forward, cut route paths more with my shitty tanks. With a broken unit, cut a route path. With my green Romanians, break in a spot where I can route first to cut, because it's my turn. I route first, right? If I could break into a spot and route into a spot where he can't get to, if I could beat him to that spot and he has to route, he dies. That's the next level, is looking forward into the game, looking forward even in the phases of the game. Where is that unit going to be when he breaks? When I move all my units forward and get that 8+1 shot on him and he breaks, where does he have to go? Where does he want to go? I want to move my guy there first, so he doesn't want to go there. You take away what he wants to do and let him play your game. As soon as you get your opponent playing your game, you'll win most of your games, because he doesn't know how to play your game. He's playing his game. When he starts to play with your guys, he doesn't know what he's doing. And then therefore you've got control of it. The rest of the game is yours. And the victories will just come left and right. And it will become smoother, and your actions and your movements will become more fluid. You know, you won't care about, like this last year, before talking to you guys last year, I cared about my guys breaking. I got emotionally upset when my guys were breaking. It's like, damn it, I'm in a stone building, I shouldn't break. Now I don't give a shit because sometimes I want them to break. Fire my guy here because I'm planning on you breaking him. Now I've made secondary options of, okay, he breaks, good. These guys over here got him covered. As long as you got him covered part, you guys are fine. Guys can break all day long. As long as you have a got him covered aspect of it, you move 2 guys up there and they both break. Do you want to move more guys if he's got more guys to fire? You probably don't want all your guys to break in one turn. At that point, you might want to hold back. Take those guys up there, give those broken guys a room to come back so they can recover, so he can't maneuver on them. And then you just get delayed like 1 turn because you're going to lose your DM in his turn. Your leader's going to be there because you're going to plan for those guys to be broken, right? When you're moving, you plan for where those guys are going to route to. And then as long as they reach that destination of routing, they're up in your turn because they're most likely going to have some morale. You're going to have a leader. You're going to be in building. You need 8. One of those guys is coming up. So, and then you start your plan again. You just get delayed a little bit. It happens. Guys will break. But like I said, you guys, I think you guys have reached that next level of understanding and just work in the nuances of nationality distinctions, work in the nuances of what my tank does, it's like I said before, we were covering that one scenario's got the 6 Shermans against they're attacking the little village, the Russians, but they have 6 Shermans. Sherman marches west. Why do they have Shermans instead of T-34s? Well, flip the counters over smoke. That's the only reason. That's the only reason why those Shermans are in that scenario. And we covered that before, a couple of videos on that one. So when you see something in your OB, you see a stupid mortar that doesn't seem to do anything, think of why that mortar might be there. Maybe it could kill tanks easier. Maybe there's a lot of woods that you need to defend or something like that. Protect units that way. It's there for a reason. And just try to figure it out. Sometimes you can figure it out, sometimes you can't. But just think of why everything's in the game. And you'll reach that next level of proficiency. And then you'll pick on that, you'll get comfortable with that, and then you go to the next level of proficiency. And so on and so forth. And however way you want to go is up to you. If you want to play a lot of tank games and learn proficiency with tanks and focus on that, by all means do that. If you're a great tank commander, you'll win more games than guys that aren't tank commanders, right? You'll be willing to lose them. You don't really care, stuff like that. I don't think I've reached that point yet, but I'm working on it. But just working on other things and routing. Again, if people say, you have no control when you're routing, I completely disagree with that. You have 100% of control where your guys are going because you are putting them in positions where they will break, right? You're not rolling the dice. Every hex you move is a hex that you know that they can break in. And when they break in that hex, you already know where they're routing to, or you better. And as long as you're comfortable with their destination when they're breaking in every single hex that they could possibly move into, then you're completely comfortable. Then you won't care about your units breaking whatsoever anymore in the game. And you won't be distracted by any stretch of the imagination. And guess what? Thank you. And you get to keep focus on the game. You'll pass so many more personal task checks, personal morale checks, because you lost 2 or 3 squads. Like, that's fine. I know where they're routing. I got a leader prep for that. I'll move him. I'll double time him over there because there's no penalty for being CX and rallying. I'll double time this 8-1 over there to get those guys going. I got a couple other guys to cover, and they're up next turn. And when your opponent sees him just shredding your units and you're not even batting an eye, not bitching about the dice, and you're rallying units the turn after, maybe even a little long, you roll some shitty dice. As long as you protect him, you're back in the fray, and he's got to shoot at him again. And maybe this time he rolls 9s and 10s, and then you get through. And then you're focused on your objective. You're focused on what your guys can do. And the control comes back into your pocket. And that's where you need to be. Once You know, you've played other players that have lost like their big stack of dude. Their 9-2, HMG, and a couple 4-6-8s, right? Oh shit, there's no way I can win the scenario now, you know? And he's got like 10, 12 squads left, right? It's like he loses like one big stack. He has to anticipate that guy getting broken. And because he hasn't, he's lost his person morale check was like a 2-person morale check. Well, pretty much if you know when you guys are broken and you're comfortable with you guys breaking, you're only taking task checks. You're never taking a person morale check. You're never going to break. You might get delayed a little bit, and that's the task check. But you're never taking a personal morale check when you've mastered routing and mastered the concept of knowing where my guys are going to go and being okay with them breaking. If he casual reduces them, whatever. You know, it happens. It's dice. You're gonna lose some guys by casual reduction. That happens. You know, I lost a guy straight up KA at a 2-2, rolls a snake eyes. You know, a 0 on the 1 chart and it's still KA. You know, it happens. You know, did I want him to die? Hell no. But he's dead. There's nothing I can do about it now. But as long as you know that you will never, ever, ever fail the personal morale check. They'll all be personal task checks. So that's just my ASL philosophy for you guys this week. And that's about all I got. But thank you for joining the Zen session of ASL. Again, this is something more of a philosophical discussion on how to get in your opponent's head, how to pull all of the facets of a scenario together. It's not easy when you want to do it because you have to think of so many different things at one time. It's like chess. I mean, that's why we like ASL. It's playing a giant chess game, and you're pulling very small details and putting them together to be able to build the puzzle that you want to solve in each of your scenarios. So with that, join us next time, and hopefully we'll have just as much fun then as well. Thanks a lot. We'll see you.